Center with my children, Tennyson and Theodore, who are focusing very hard on doing this video with me. I'll have you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about what we're doing today while I just get my apron on.
We're going to make banana.
That is in Perth, Ontario. Oh, sorry about community meals 3 days a week. Right now, during COVID-19, we have stopped most of our on-site food skills programming, and that would be our community kitchens, our after-school program, as well as our partnerships within area youth centers. And can you guys just maybe help for a few minutes?
Okay.
I need you guys to help with the recipes here. So, yeah. Oh, God. See, here is also the challenges of doing a video from home. So, yeah, while we are doing limited food skills programming on site at the table, we're just trying to offer some of these things from home. But we do currently have community meals 3 nights a week for pickup and also for delivery. And that's from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We also have the food bank open several days a week right now. We have the food bank open 2 to 5 p.m. Mondays. On Tuesdays we do deliveries only, which you can phone the center and arrange for having deliveries on Tuesdays, and any of the other days for that matter. And Wednesdays 3:30 to 6 p.m. and Fridays 2 to 5 p.m. Oh, actually, I think I'm mistaken. I think deliveries are only Tuesday. But now we are also offering deliveries of the meals for the community meals. So it's only pickup and delivery is what our programs are offering right now. And for any extra information, go to our Facebook page, which you are viewing this on now, or to our website at www.thetablecfc.org. So today, we're going to be using ripe bananas to do a couple of things. These are actually 2 recipes that I've used in some of my programs, and that the kids and I have been doing a lot of banana bread at home. There has been quite a bit of bananas available from our good food bank and going out in the community, so we figured we'd do a couple of recipes of how you can use some overripe bananas. And also, if you don't have a chance to use them and they're getting really brown like this one, like really brown, then you can freeze them for baking or use them right away in baking or something like smoothies or other uses. Some people also use bananas mushed up as an egg replacer if you aren't able to eat eggs or access eggs for whatever reason, that you can actually omit the egg in this recipe and add a little bit more banana into that as well. So that's one substitution you could do. So the first thing we're going to start with is the banana bread. And next we're going to make banana oat balls. So I'm going to get Tennyson to start mashing these bananas. It's one of his favorite jobs to do when we're doing banana bread. And what we've done, this recipe calls for 3 medium bananas, but I had 4 sort of smallish bananas. So we're going to do 4. Some recipes will do a measurement, but this one just has the amount of bananas. So you can judge that sort of what an average banana looks like. What is a medium banana? These ones I would say are more of a large banana, sort of like longer than my face. And again, the ideal is to use bananas that maybe aren't going to be used for eating otherwise for doing this baking. And so when the bananas are mashed up afterwards, we're also going to start mixing in some of the dry ingredients. So Feo is going to measure 1.5 cups of flour into our bowl here. So we mix the dry ingredients separately, and in case you're not used to baking, it's just so that we can actually get all the clumps out of the dry ingredients, and it makes for a much smoother, consistent dough afterwards if we mix the 2 separately. And it just allows for certain ingredients to kind of blend in more evenly into the final baked product. 3 of those. So we're using a 1/2 cup measurement, so we do 3 times that. Again, I think I mentioned this in my last video, but cooking with kids at home, it's a really good way. We don't have enough time while doing this video, but it's a good way to sort of get them to do multiplications and also look at fractions and other things when we look at different measurements and conversions if you're doing that kind of thing. So once we get those in, we're also going to use baking powder. So we do 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. That's okay if it mixes a little. So the kids were just saying some of the flour got into the bananas, and that's okay. Even though we want to be relatively precise with baking measurements and such, if a little bit of this or that gets into it, it's not a big deal. And we don't really want to stress too much of it, especially when we are cooking with kids at home. We really want to be able to make this a fun experience for everyone, because we want to come back to it as well. So, yeah, Tennyson likes to do the teaspoon measurement, so he's going to help me with doing this one. 1 teaspoon. And I showed everyone this last time. It's just like a little tea strainer or something, a little sieve, and I actually use it to press through. My baking soda, for whatever reason, always seems super clumpy, so I like to press through the baking soda so that we don't get big clumps of it in here. So do you want to do that and then press it through? And Tenny likes to do this too, because you kind of get to feel the baking soda. And of course we've washed our hands very well before we've done this as well. So we do a teaspoon of that, and then we're also going to do a teaspoon of baking soda, which we'll get Feo to measure into there. Yeah. And this recipe, which I will post to our website afterwards, and I think actually I might be able to post it in the comments as well, if I can figure that out, technically speaking. This recipe calls for 3/4 cups of brown sugar. However, if you feel like omitting a bit of that sugar, I think this is the kind of recipe where you could do that. Bananas have, oh, and here we go. Feo's going to do that with the baking soda. Bananas have quite a bit of sugar in them naturally, and especially when they have all the spots on them like this, they're really at their prime of how much sugar is in them. So we don't need to use an awful lot of sugar when it comes to baking with bananas. So I would actually maybe do 1/2 cup of sugar, which we'll just reuse this one here. So I do 1/2 cup of brown sugar to add to what we're doing. And we can add that into with the bananas. Because the brown sugar kind of needs to break down a little bit, we'll add that in with the bananas. And I'll have Tennyson just add that. I'm going to do a rough 1/2 cup of brown sugar. It does call for 3/4 cup, but I think a reduction in sugar in this one is called for. And I don't like my kids to have too much sugar. And this is a pretty sweet treat already. Sometimes we put chocolate pieces or chocolate chips into it as well. So that's a bit of sweetness that we add to it aside from the sugar. And we're going to get 1 egg cracked, which might be an issue. My kids love to crack eggs, and I think all the other kids that I've worked with love cracking eggs usually. So it's like, who gets to crack the 1 egg? Probably Tennyson, because he's 4 and he tends to protest a bit more when he doesn't get what he wants. So Tennyson's going to try and crack the egg. We're getting pretty good at cracking eggs, but you might want to have your kids practice a few of these. Whoop. Yeah, you did it great. And I don't think you even got any eggshell in there. You might want to have your kids practice doing that. I'm going to get Tennyson maybe to run in and wash his hands off, just because after we've handled eggs, we like to wash off our hands. And then in the meantime, we'll just keep working away at this. So we want to mash that banana fairly well, but you don't really want to over mix it or make it sort of like get too brown or blackish, because it can just affect the flavor.
You should show them when you're done.
Oh, yes, I will show you. So at this point, we have mixed the wet ingredients with the banana with the brown sugar, and also the egg in there. And we also have, this one calls for 3/4 cup of buttermilk. But what we're going to use in place of that, I often don't have buttermilk on hand. So what I like to use is yogurt thinned out with a little bit of milk. Or there's ways that you can use 3/4 cups of milk, and you could add maybe a teaspoon of lemon juice into there. And when you mix the lemon, it actually sort of sours the milk instantly and starts to curdle it and thicken it. And you'll notice that if you do it in one of these cups, you just put milk and then lemon juice, it'll thicken it just like buttermilk. I also will have one of my kids, Feo at this point, I'm going to have him do, I didn't have all my tools ready properly. I'm I'm going to have Feo use a whisk, and that's what we like to use to get the clumps out of the flour and work out anything in the sugar, or in the baking soda and baking powder. And then we're also just going to add this milk in with our wet ingredients now. The butter in lieu of buttermilk, the watered down yogurt. You could use straight yogurt as well. It would just mean that the dough is probably a little thicker when you put it into your bread pan afterwards. We are going to use, I have the bread pan sitting here because we have bananas in it right now. But we're going to use a standard size bread pan. I believe it's about 3" by 9". Oh, we're back now. We seem to have lost you again there for a second. I'm really sorry about the technical difficulties we're having with our internet today. So we use a 9" by 5" by 3" pan, loaf pan like this. You could also bake it in really any oven-proof baking dish. You could bake it more of a square if you wanted and have it that way. Or you can do really the same recipe into muffin tins. And you just make sure to really well grease the inside of the muffin tin all the way up to the top. Because that top edge is sometimes where we miss, and sometimes that can be a little difficult in popping the bread out of the pan afterwards when you're done with it. So you just want to do that. We're also going to add a little bit of vanilla. I know vanilla is something that not everyone has on hand. Not all the bread recipes for banana bread that I've used, not all of them contain vanilla, but this one does. And I just wanted to show you my little trick for vanilla. I actually have had and I use vanilla beans, and I pour of alcohol into there, like maybe a rum or something like that if you have that around. So if you have that kind of thing on hand and want to do a little sort of hack to do some vanilla extract, what you do is you split a little vanilla bean and then you put it inside of the alcohol, and it sort of extracts the vanilla flavor. And that's somewhat how some of the more commercially based vanilla extracts, how they will do their vanilla anyway. So we'll add a teaspoon of that into our baking as well. And we'll also add that to the, we mix the two together. So what we can do is add this to this. Yeah. And then we'll get, here, let's take the spoon out.
Can I?
Or fork.
Yeah.
You take it out of there with the spatula. I always like to use a spatula when I'm baking just to get every last bit, well, and doing most cooking really. I don't like to waste food, and so I like to get every last bit of the liquid out of that bowl. It also makes for easier cleanup afterwards, just as a little tip there, that the more you get out of the bowl, the better it is for cleaning afterwards. Yeah, Tenny, you can mix with this fork, this one. So Tenny's just going to finish mixing that. And I'm actually just going to get this area cleaned up a tiny bit, because what we're going to do next is switch over to our next item here that we're going to make, which is the banana oat balls. And this is a no-bake recipe. As I said, I will also post this to the website and also to the Facebook page as well at some point soon. And the banana oat balls is a 5-ingredient oat ball made with ripe bananas, or 1 ripe banana, 2 cups quick cook oats, 3 tablespoons honey, 1 tablespoon cocoa powder, and 1/4 cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. And you actually just use the coconut for rolling the balls in. So if you do not like coconut, which I know coconut can be a bit polarizing, which some people love it and some people don't like it very much.
I don't like coconut milk.
Yeah, Tenny doesn't love coconut milk. He also doesn't love coconut in general. So we may or may not put the coconut on the outside of ours, all of ours today. But that's really nice to have. I forgot one ingredient in the banana bread, and I'm sorry to go back to this, but it was the oats, and that we were going to add 1 cup of oats to the banana bread as well. So that's just to give a little bit more fiber, and oats have a lot of benefits for our health, and so we do try to slip in oats here in this house quite a bit. My son Tennyson eats oatmeal almost every day, and so we always have it on hand. And that one I use quick cook oats, but I think that the original recipe might call for whole oats. I also just put my baking soda in here, if anyone was wondering where we were getting our baking soda from. So Theodore, I'm going to have start on the next recipe, and we're going to use 1 ripe banana. So this one, Theo, you can mash again as well. I'm going to get you a fork for that. So Theo's going to mash the 1 ripe banana. We have the honey measured out as well as the cocoa powder here. And I'm going to measure out the oats for this one as well. That one's a little harder to mash because it wasn't quite as ripe as the other bananas. This banana that we used for this recipe was about this ripe, so it's not like fully ripe. And they're a little bit harder to mash sometimes depending on what tool you're using. Here, we could use this. No, we can't use that masher. No, here, I might need to do that one. But then I'm going to have Theo measure the other ingredients into here. So Theo, you can put in the cocoa powder. Yep, all of the cocoa powder. And the honey as well. And you can kind of mash while you're mixing, and that sort of incorporates it all nicely. This is the honey right here. And you might just need a spoon to just get all the rest of the honey out there, so you can do that with 2 hands. And while you do that, I'm going to grab
honey.
Oh, and I think you smell the cocoa. So if you don't have cocoa, there are other different oat balls and banana balls that you can find online. So I would encourage you, if you do have access to the internet, which I guess you do if you're watching this, that you would seek out some alternate recipes. If you don't like coconut, or you don't want chocolate in there for whatever reason, or if you don't have those things on hand, there's other sort of energy balls you can do with bananas and a few other ingredients that you might have on hand as well. So there's lots that you can do with bananas, including, I heard something about a really, neat frozen yogurt.
The honey and the cocoa smells like chocolate.
Oh, yeah, so Tenny's mentioning that the honey and the cocoa smells like chocolate, which is very true. And it's because basically when you eat chocolate, it's a mixture of cocoa beans, cocoa butter, and maybe some milk solids and various things, and sugar. So it's kind of combinations of cocoa and sugar. So we're going to add 1 cup and then a 2nd cup of the quick cook oats. So we're not using the whole oats. There's 2 different kinds of oats that you can buy in the store. The quick cook ones, they're basically whole oats just macerated a little bit. So they've been broken down a tiny bit, and that's going to allow them to cook a little bit quicker. And for this recipe, it allows the other ingredients to kind of mix into there a little bit better. We may not have time to roll these out, although we're probably going to try a few before we're done. Maybe while Theodore mixes this in a little, which I know it's tough, but you can just do it, work away at it. I was just going to offer a couple of tips as well on when you are... I think that's enough. I think we got enough of the honey out. Okay, who wants to lick that one?
Me.
Who wants to lick that one? Just give them to me afterwards so that I can put them in the sink. So while my kids lick that honey, I'm just going to explain what I do to freeze bananas. It's interesting, I was talking to a coworker, Aisha, about this yesterday, who's our other community kitchen coordinator, and Aisha was saying the same thing that I was mentioning to her, which was that we both learned this trick late in life. I grew up, my mom was one of the people who taught me to bake most of all in my life. And my mom used to freeze bananas, but what she would do was actually stick the banana in whole. And then when she was going to bake something, she would take them out in the skin and everything, thaw them, and then kind of mush them out of the banana peel. Which, in hindsight, like that definitely works. And if you want to reduce plastic and otherwise, it can work really well. However, this trick that I've learned as an adult has really revolutionized using frozen bananas for me. And I find it makes the bananas more usable for smoothies and that kind of thing, because you really don't want them to be all mushy and stuff. Use frozen bananas. Can you guys just whisper? I love to use frozen bananas in smoothies, and it's a nice creamy smoothie. You can even avoid using dairy and that kind of thing if you use a nice frozen banana. And what you would do, you would peel multiple bananas, put them kind of one layer in a bag, and then freeze them that way. And that way you can take out individual bananas. Aisha also mentioned, actually, and this is a really great tip as well, that you could use a smaller freezer bag like this one, and then you could just put 3 bananas, which is about how many bananas are required for most banana bread recipes. And if you really know you just love making banana bread and you just want a bunch of mushed bananas, you could also pre-mush them, put them into a freezer-safe container, and freeze them that way. But I really like to freeze them this way. Someone had actually taught me to lay them out onto a baking sheet to freeze them, but I don't find that step necessary, and a lot of freezers don't have enough space in them to fit a baking sheet, including my own. Yeah. You guys go wash your hands for a minute. So the kids are going to wash up their hands, and I'm just going to finish mashing this banana into the banana oat balls, and then we'll just quickly show you how to finish both of these recipes. Again, all of the directions and the recipes I will post online in just a moment once we're off of the video here. But they're pretty straightforward recipes, and hopefully you can follow along with this as well if for some reason you can't access the recipes otherwise. So what we had done in advance of this is to prepare a little dish just to put our banana oat balls into, and I'll just put that here. So I've just put a sheet of parchment paper in the bottom of a baking dish. You could just use really any old thing. You could use a plate or something. This recipe makes 10 to 15 of the oat balls, and so you're going to want to have space to space them out, because you actually put them in the fridge for a few minutes to sort of harden up, and that just makes them a bit more portable if you wanted to even take these as a snack, say you're going to work or school. It's a really nice snack actually to take for there. When one of the kids comes back, I might get them to butter this baking dish as well. If you don't bake a lot, you may not know this tip, but I save my butter wrappers in the fridge. This was also something I learned from my mom, which is that you use the leftover of butter to grease the baking dish. And probably most home bakers know this trick, but and it's maybe something that some people don't bother with. You might just want to put oil or some other way to grease your pan. But I really like this way. It's actually a good way to do it that's clean. It's efficient in the use of butter, because you don't really have to break off a butter and wash it off your hands afterwards. And it just uses up, again, every last bit of the butter, because butter can be an expensive and fairly valuable ingredient as well. So I buttered that up, so once the kids come back, we can get the dough into there. And I will just start making, I don't know if my kids are coming back. I hope this is enjoyable for others at home and relatable, because this is, it can pose its challenges working from home with children. And I do want to stress that if at any point baking and cooking with kids becomes, then we can just put it down or finish later, or send your kids off to play in the other room while you finish up, which is what I often do. And then maybe get them to come help clean up or something like that if that's part of their chores and otherwise. So these balls, we make them about 1 inch to 1.5 inches across. I'm going to do just a couple here to show you, because I know we're getting on to about half an hour, and I don't like to go too much longer than that and have people waiting on here. But so this is the banana oat ball. So I've put it about 1 inch across, made it about that big. I'll just put that right on the parchment paper. If Tennyson or Faye want to make an oat ball, they can, or if you want to put that in the...
I do.
Okay, so it's kind of mushy, but you just take it and you kind of like squish it and you pack it in a little bit. I will show you in case, and hopefully you can see this, I'm just going to show you what the banana oat balls look like. It's kind of a fairly thick mash of the bananas, the oats, and everything else in there. You don't want it to be relatively thick because otherwise the balls won't come together well. And if you have honey around that's maybe solidified a little, you might want to stick it in some warm water, or if you have a microwave at home, you could stick it in the microwave to soften it up and loosen it up a bit. But then again, it's going to re-harden when you put it back in the fridge. And if you want to, you put the, you make the ball and then you roll the ball in the coconut. But if you want to avoid the coconut, you can for sure do that as well. I'm just going to rinse my hands here for one moment while I talk to the side of the camera. I hadn't done it yet, and I'm going to have to do it now, but you were also to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and that would be for the banana bread. So we're going to do that now. Preheating the oven doesn't really take too long, so if you forget to do that step, which usually it says at the beginning of a recipe, that's okay. You can always do it later. It just may mean a slight delay. You do want the oven to be hot to that heat, to that temperature, which usually there's a little indicator of that by a light or something on your oven. And that way it's the right temperature when you put it in, because otherwise it just kind of messes up the recipe and it might not bake properly. Yes. Okay. He's going to go rinse his hands now again. So I think we can thank our helpers. We're going to be ending in just a minute here. So I'm going to thank my helpers, Feo and Tennyson. Did you guys have a good time?
Yep.
Say hi to everybody out there. You might have some friends watching or family. My kids have really been enjoying doing these videos with me, so thanks to everybody for watching. Again, we have 3 days a week meals at the table, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then we have the food bank open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, only closed on Thursdays for both pickup and deliveries in both of those programs. So please visit the table's website, visit our Facebook page. We have quite a few of these Facebook Live posts already that we've been accumulating on our website. We're doing these videos twice a week. We're doing them Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. and Thursdays at 1 p.m. So we have those 2 time slots each week. And I actually forgot to check in with Aisha and Judy to see what they might be doing this coming Tuesday. And then I think Joe's going to be doing some more gardening stuff again next Thursday. For upcoming episodes, I was thinking some great things once we start having some more local produce available is to talk about the harvest and preparation and cleaning of vegetables from the garden and how we store them. So we'll do some different things on here. We're going to be doing cooking, gardening, baking, and all sorts of fun things with food. So hope to see you soon, and thanks a lot, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties we had today. Bye! See you soon! Wait, I can never figure out how to exit.